Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're listening to the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any selection using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Data in discourse analysis. In discourse analysis, data refers to the various forms of spoken, written, or multimodal communication that are collected and analyzed to explore how language is used to construct meaning, negotiate social relationships, and reflect power dynamics. The types of data used in discourse analysis are diverse and can include anything from conversations, speeches, interviews, and texts to images, social media posts, and videos. The nature of the data depends on the research focus, the theoretical framework, and the context in which the discourse occurs. The goal of collecting data in discourse analysis is to understand how language operates in real-world settings and how meaning is co-constructed by participants within specific social, cultural, and historical contexts. Data in discourse analysis can be qualitative, focusing on in-depth exploration of meaning, or quantitative, examining patterns of language use across large datasets. 1. Key types of data in discourse analysis. Textual data. Written forms of communication. Textual data in discourse analysis refers to written forms of communication that are analyzed to explore how meaning is constructed through language. This can include formal documents, literature, online posts, and any other form of written text. Researchers focus on the linguistic features, rhetorical structures, and patterns in these texts to understand how they contribute to broader social and ideological processes. Formal texts. These include institutional documents, such as laws, policies, reports, or academic papers, that reflect specific discursive practices. Informal texts. Examples include personal diaries, emails, or social media posts, which may reveal everyday discourse practices. Example: a discourse analyst studying environmental policy might examine government reports and legislation related to climate change. The textual data would be analyzed to identify how the language of the documents frames environmental issues, reflecting political ideologies and priorities. Spoken data. Recorded speech and conversations. Spoken data includes any form of spoken interaction, such as conversations, interviews, speeches, or phone calls. This type of data is often transcribed to allow for detailed analysis of linguistic features, including tone, pauses, interruptions, and nonverbal cues that influence how meaning is constructed in interaction. Naturally occurring conversations. This data comes from everyday spoken interactions, where participants are unaware of being observed, allowing for the study of authentic discourse practices. Institutional talk. Conversations that take place within formal contexts, such as interviews, courtroom dialogues, or medical consultations, can be analyzed to understand the power dynamics and roles established through language. Example: a researcher examining doctor-patient communication in medical consultations might record conversations in a clinic. The spoken data would be analyzed to explore how doctors use language to establish authority, deliver diagnoses, and interact with patients. Multimodal data. Combining text, visuals, and other modes. Multimodal data refers to communication that involves multiple modes beyond just text or speech, such as images, videos, gestures, body language, sound, and spatial arrangement. In multimodal discourse analysis, researchers examine how these various modes work together to construct meaning and convey social messages. Visual data. Images, advertisements, website designs, and infographics are analyzed in relation to accompanying text to understand how visual and textual elements work together. Auditory data. Sound, including tone of voice, music, or background noise, may be part of the analysis, especially in audiovisual data like films or advertisements. Example: in a political campaign advertisement, a researcher might analyze how images of the candidate, background music, and slogans work together to convey a particular message or emotional appeal. The multimodal data reveals how different semiotic resources combine to shape the audience's perception of the candidate. Digital and online data. Communication in digital spaces. With the rise of social media, blogs, forums, and other online platforms, digital data has become an important source of discourse for analysis. Online discourse often involves both textual and visual elements, as well as interactive components like comments, likes, and shares, which add layers of meaning to the communication. Social media posts. Data from platforms like Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram can reveal how people construct identities, express opinions, and engage in public debates. Online forums and blogs. These are rich sources of discursive data, where people participate in ongoing conversations on specific topics, providing insights into how communities form and communicate online. Example: a researcher might analyze Twitter conversations using hashtags like #BlackLivesMatter to understand how activists and followers use social media to mobilize, express solidarity, or challenge dominant narratives. The digital data includes tweets, retweets, hashtags, and images, revealing patterns of discourse and online interaction. Historical data. Discourse across time. Historical data involves the analysis of discourse from past events, texts, or media. This allows researchers to study how language and meaning have evolved over time and how historical contexts shape contemporary discourse. Researchers might use historical data to trace changes in how certain social issues are discussed or to compare discourse across different time periods. Archival documents. These can include newspapers, letters, political speeches, or advertisements from previous decades or centuries. Diachronic studies. Research that looks at how discourse changes over time, revealing shifts in ideologies, values, or social norms. Example: a discourse analyst might study political speeches on immigration from the 1980s to today, comparing how the language around immigration has evolved. The historical data could reveal shifts in the framing of immigration as either an economic opportunity or a threat. Institutional data. Discourse in formal settings. Institutional data refers to language used in formal settings, such as legal, educational, medical, or corporate institutions. This type of data is valuable for understanding how power, authority, and expertise are constructed and maintained through discourse. Institutional discourse often has a structured and rule-governed nature, which reflects the roles and hierarchies of the participants. Court transcripts. These provide data for analyzing how legal arguments are constructed, how authority is maintained, and how defendants, lawyers, and judges communicate within the constraints of legal discourse. Educational settings. Classroom interactions, textbooks, and school policies can be analyzed to understand how knowledge is transmitted and how social roles are reinforced through language. Example: a researcher studying educational discourse might analyze classroom interactions to see how teachers and students use language to construct authority and negotiate knowledge. The institutional data could include recorded lessons, student-teacher interactions, and lesson plans. Ethnographic data. Contextual data from fieldwork. Ethnographic data is collected through participant observation, interviews, and field notes, often in natural settings where the researcher is immersed in the environment being studied. This type of data provides rich, contextual insights into how language is used in specific social and cultural contexts, allowing for a deep understanding of meaning-making processes. Field notes. Detailed descriptions of language use, cultural practices, and social interactions in specific contexts. Interviews and conversations. Audio or video recordings of in-depth interviews or everyday conversations that provide insights into how people use language to construct meaning in their social worlds. Example: a discourse analyst conducting ethnographic research in a workplace setting might observe meetings, take notes on interactions, and conduct interviews with employees to understand how language is used to manage professional relationships, power dynamics, and workplace culture. 2. Methods of data collection in discourse analysis. Recording and transcription. Capturing spoken interaction. For studies involving spoken discourse, researchers typically record conversations or interviews to ensure accurate data collection. These recordings are then transcribed, often with detailed attention to features like pauses, intonation, and overlaps, which can reveal important aspects of interaction. Audio and video recording. Used to capture real-time spoken interaction, allowing researchers to analyze verbal and non-verbal communication. Transcription conventions. Researchers may use specific transcription systems, such as Jefferson notation in conversation analysis, to capture the nuances of spoken discourse. Example: a researcher recording and transcribing a political debate might analyze not only the words used but also how candidates use pauses, tone, and interruptions to influence the flow of conversation and assert dominance. Corpus collection. Analyzing large datasets of text. A corpus is a large collection of texts that can be analyzed to identify patterns of language use across a wide range of data. Corpus-based approaches allow for quantitative analysis of collocations, frequency of words, and other patterns that can reveal underlying discursive structures. Textual corpora. Collections of written texts, such as news articles, academic papers, or legal documents, that can be used to study how language is used in different genres or domains. Spoken corpora. Transcripts of conversations, interviews, or broadcasts that allow researchers to analyze spoken discourse on a large scale. Example: a researcher studying media representations of gender might collect a corpus of articles from different news outlets and use software like ant-conc or Sketch Engine to analyze how frequently gendered terms appear and what words collocate with them. Ethnographic observation. Immersing in social contexts. Ethnographic methods involve the researcher actively engaging with participants in their social environment to observe how language is used in real-life contexts. This immersive approach allows researchers to collect data that reflects natural language use and social interactions. Participant observation. Researchers observe and participate in social settings, taking detailed notes on how language is used to negotiate meaning, relationships, and power. Contextual interviews. In addition to observation, researchers may conduct informal or structured interviews to gather participants' perspectives on their own language use. Example: a discourse analyst conducting ethnographic research in a religious community might observe how sermons are delivered, how congregants interact with religious leaders, and how ritual language is used to reinforce community values. Archival research. Collecting historical or institutional data. Archival research involves collecting data from historical documents, legal records, or other official sources. This method is often used in discourse analysis to study how language has changed over time or how institutions maintain power through specific discursive practices. Historical texts. Archival documents, such as speeches, letters, or newspapers, are analyzed to understand how language has been used to construct social realities across different historical periods. Institutional records. Researchers might analyze legal documents, policy papers, or medical records to explore how institutional language shapes social relations and decision-making. Example: a researcher studying historical changes in political rhetoric might analyze presidential speeches from different decades, examining how the language used to describe national identity, freedom, or security has shifted over time. 3. Examples of data in discourse analysis. Example 1. Spoken data in legal discourse. Context: analyzing courtroom interactions between lawyers and witnesses. Data collection. Audio recordings of trial proceedings are transcribed to examine how lawyers use questions to control the narrative and establish authority. The spoken data includes linguistic strategies such as leading questions, pauses, and interruptions that shape the courtroom dynamic. Example 2. Textual data in media analysis. Context: studying how environmental issues are framed in newspaper articles. Data collection. A corpus of articles from different newspapers is collected, and the textual data is analyzed to identify recurring patterns of language use, such as the frequent pairing of words like climate change with urgent or crisis, reflecting the media's framing of the issue. Example 3. Multimodal data in advertising. Context: analyzing political campaign advertisements. Data collection. Video advertisements are collected, and the multimodal data, including images, text, sound, and body language, is analyzed to understand how candidates use visual and auditory elements alongside language to construct a particular identity and appeal to voters. Conclusion. Data in discourse analysis can come from a wide variety of sources, including spoken conversations, written texts, digital media, and multimodal communication. The type of data collected depends on the research questions and the specific discourse being studied. Whether analyzing institutional language, online interactions, or everyday conversations, discourse analysts use data to uncover how language constructs meaning, reflects social power, and shapes human relationships. By systematically collecting and analyzing data, discourse analysis reveals the intricate ways in which language and society are interconnected. Frequently asked questions. What is data in discourse analysis? Data in discourse analysis refers to various forms of communication, spoken, written, or multimodal, collected for analyzing how language constructs meaning, negotiates social relationships, and reflects power dynamics. This data can include conversations, speeches, texts, images, social media posts, and videos, with its nature depending on the research focus, theoretical framework, and context. Why is data collection important in discourse analysis? Data collection is crucial because it allows researchers to understand how language operates in real-world settings. By examining authentic communication, analysts can explore how meaning is co-constructed within specific social, cultural, and historical contexts. This helps in identifying linguistic patterns, social norms, and power dynamics embedded in discourse. What are the key types of textual data used in discourse analysis? Textual data includes formal and informal written forms of communication. Formal texts, institutional documents like laws, policies, and reports. Informal texts, personal diaries, emails, social media posts. Researchers analyze linguistic features, rhetorical structures, and patterns in these texts to understand broader social and ideological processes. How is spoken data used in discourse analysis? Spoken data involves analyzing conversations, interviews, speeches, and other forms of verbal communication. It is often transcribed to examine linguistic features such as tone, pauses, and nonverbal cues. This data helps reveal how participants construct meaning in interaction and can include naturally occurring conversations or institutional talk like courtroom dialogues. What is multimodal data, and why is it significant in discourse analysis? Multimodal data includes communication that involves multiple modes, such as text, visuals, sound, and body language. It is significant because it offers a holistic view of how meaning is constructed using different semiotic resources. Researchers study how elements like images, music, and spatial arrangements interact with language to convey complex social messages. How has digital and online data transformed discourse analysis? Digital and online data, including social media posts, blogs, and forums, have expanded the scope of discourse analysis by providing new platforms for communication. Online discourse often involves textual, visual, and interactive components. Analyzing digital data helps understand how people construct identities, express opinions, and engage in public debates in the digital age. What role does historical data play in discourse analysis? Historical data allows researchers to study how language and meaning have evolved over time. By analyzing archival documents, political speeches, or media from different periods, researchers can trace changes in discourse, revealing shifts in ideologies, values, or social norms. This diachronic analysis provides insights into how past discourses shape contemporary communication. How is institutional data relevant to understanding power dynamics in discourse? Institutional data, such as language used in legal, educational, or corporate settings, is vital for understanding how power, authority, and expertise are constructed and maintained. This structured and rule-governed discourse reflects the roles and hierarchies of participants, revealing how institutions influence social relations and decision-making through language. What methods are used to collect spoken data in discourse analysis? Spoken data is typically collected through recording and transcription. Researchers use audio or video recording to capture real-time interactions and employ transcription conventions to document nuances like pauses, intonation, and overlaps. This method allows for detailed analysis of both verbal and nonverbal communication, essential for understanding interaction dynamics. How does ethnographic data enhance discourse analysis? Ethnographic data, collected through participant observation, interviews, and field notes, provides contextual insights into language use within specific social and cultural settings. This immersive approach allows researchers to observe natural language use and social interactions, offering a deeper understanding of meaning-making processes in everyday contexts. What is corpus collection, and how is it used in discourse analysis? Corpus collection involves compiling large datasets of text, known as corpora, for quantitative analysis of language use. Researchers use software tools to analyze patterns like word frequency and collocations. This method is particularly useful for studying discourse across various genres or domains, such as media representations of specific social issues.